Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. With a war still raging in Europe, we must face today's threats while preparing the solutions to protect our future. And today I'm standing in front of you, an interdisciplinary audience, students, scholars, policy decision makers, business leaders, to propose an idea, a vision that can reshape Europe's security future for decades to come. And this vision is the creation of European Defense Partnership Office. I will call it EDPO. And the first question, why? Why do we need an EDPO? Because Europe's security and the survival of democracy itself depend on long-term, institutionalized cooperation. Cooperation beyond current borders of EU. And my belief is simple here. In a world of global, interrelated, interconnected threats, no democracy is an island. And EU needs collective security leadership to protect our values, our security interests, but not in isolation. And Europe now faces its most dangerous security environment for decades to come. Russia's war in Ukraine has shattered the peace, while Chinese dual-use technologies and arrival of North Korean troops in Europe are making our enemies more interoperable and battle-hardened through shared experience. In response, a loose coalition of democracies from NATO, from EU, and our Indo-Pacific partners, Australia, South Korea, Japan, has come under ad hoc coalition, Ramstein Group, to deliver unprecedented military aid to Ukraine. And this proves the value of broad, well-coordinated action. But also it shows our flaw. We act boldly in crisis. Europe is inseparable from democracies worldwide, and EU still lacks a permanent defense framework for cooperation with countries outside the European Union. Cooperation with non-EU allies are fragmented, relied on bilateral frameworks with no central hub for coordination. And real collective security leadership will not come from looking inward, but from building outward, facing partnerships and alliances. That is why I propose an EDPO. Because I believe that EU can achieve collective security leadership and strengthen democracy worldwide by creating a permanent framework for defense cooperation with non-EU partners, based on Ramstein Group. And I also believe that by working together with our partners, with North Americans, Europeans, Indo-Pacific, we uphold the very value of peace, freedom, and security. Europe is inseparable from democracies worldwide. And so having established why, let's return to how. How would EDPO address these challenges? First, EDPO would serve as a dedicated institutional hub inside the EU for defense cooperation with non-EU partners. EDPO would bring our partners and allies under one roof, where all joint initiatives can be conceived, coordinated, and managed. Instead of 27 EU member states, each trying separately to negotiate with United Kingdom, Japan, or South Korea, it would create an integrated framework, interface. It would sound in one voice of all EU partners, and in turn, it would provide a clear gateway into the EU defense system. So it would have several core functions. The first function is strategic coordination and interoperability. EDPO would create a permanent frameworks for joint planning. For example, EU-UK Research and Development Forum or EU Indo-Pacific Roundtable. These align threat assessments and capability planning, backed by targeted training and interoperability programs. Multinational exercises, officer exchanges, and shared curricula would ensure that our forces can operate seamlessly together. French, Ukrainian, English troops on joint training, to European air defense with Japanese observers. And by linking strategic dialogue directly to training, EDPO would convert political alignment into actual operational capability. The second function is coordinated research and development and procurement. And it is the main function of EDPO, is to facilitate this joint initiative. For example, if multiple states from multiple continents want the same military equipment, EDPO would organize first economies of scale and interoperability from the beginning. The third function is access to EU funding mechanisms. Now, EDPO would make it easier for our partners to join EU defense projects that need funding. At the moment, it is very hard to get to use EU money, even if you have a technology that the Union really needs. EDPO would create special pathways for our partners to get involved under clear and agreed rules. In essence, EDPO's how is being the missing piece in Europe's institutional framework. NATO is a defense alliance. It deploys divisions, but it does not finance research and development and procurement at scale. European Defense Agency and initiatives such as PESCO, they drive innovations inside the EU, but they have limits when outsiders are involved. And EDPO would complement this by focusing precisely on those strategic partnerships that fall through the cracks, our closest friends outside the EU. And let me now clearly outline what EDPO is and what it would do. We have talked about motivations and mechanisms, and now I want to touch upon the structure. So it would be established by the EU as a permanent framework, such as European Defense Agency or European External Action Service. It would have in the structure Governing Council, Executive Directorate, working groups, and regional desks. So EDPO would not complement, EDPO would complement, not compete with existing EU defense platforms. And this aligns with EU-NATO goals of involving partners to the fullest possible extent. NATO would also benefit from EDPO. EDPO's project would follow NATO standards, boosting interoperability across theaters. And so we can say that if NATO is a defense umbrella, EDPO is reinforcement for that. So ladies and gentlemen, let me step back and remember why we undertook this journey in the first place. We strive for Europe that is strong, free, and at peace. We seek collective security leadership, not as a slogan, but as a way to shoulder more responsibility for our own security together with our partners. And I urge you, as emerging leaders and decision makers, to carry this idea from these forums to your capitals, to your communities, to anyone who cares about Europe's security future. Thank you.